What if I told you the reason you're not rich yet has nothing to do with your job, your education, or even the economy? It's because your mind is running on an old program, one that was never designed to make you wealthy. Today, I'm going to show you the exact technique Bob Proctor used to erase that program. Reset his mind and turn his life into a magnet for money. And if you do this the way I'm about to teach you, your results will never be the same again. But before I give you this technique, you need to understand why your mind keeps running the same program and how Bob Proctor discovered the key to rewriting it. When Bob Proctor spoke about wealth, he never started with numbers, bank accounts, or investment. He started with the mind. Because without a mental reset, without a shift in the way you think, no amount of effort will bring lasting prosperity. If you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. He would say, not as a poetic phrase, but as a direct instruction. Your results are a mirror of your inner programming. Change the program, and you change everything. The real secret to getting rich isn't a business model, a lucky break, or a hidden market. It's the ability to erase the mental patterns that have kept you trapped and replace them with new ones that make wealth not only possible, but inevitable. Imagine your mind like a computer filled with outdated, corrupted files. Every decision you make, how you respond to opportunity, whether you take a risk, how you see yourself, is running on that old code. Most people keep trying to install new goals over the same corrupted system, wondering why nothing changes. Resetting your mind is not about forgetting your past. It's about breaking the grip of those deep, invisible beliefs that tell you what you're worth. Bob Proctor would often explain that your mind is operating on a paradigm, a collection of habits and beliefs that controls 96% of what you do. If that paradigm is rooted in scarcity, in fear, and I can't, then your actions will always align with lack, no matter how hard you try. That's why so many work harder but stay stuck. The technique I'm about to share is not magic. It's discipline. It's the deliberate reprogramming of your subconscious. The way you would reset a machine to its factory settings and install a new, upgraded system. This isn't just about saying affirmations or writing down goals. Those are tools. But without the core reset, they're like painting a wall while termites are still inside. Start by becoming aware of the automatic thoughts that shape your day. If you wake up and your first thought is about problems, bills, or limits, you've already begun the day from a losing position. That thought pattern didn't appear yesterday. It's been rehearsed for years. Bob Proctor used to say, your results are an expression of your awareness. And awareness begins by noticing the cycle you're in. Once you identify the patterns, you must interrupt them forcefully, consistently, and without negotiation. The mind loves familiarity, even if that familiarity is toxic. That's why people sabotage opportunities. The new path feels unsafe simply because it's unknown. When you hit that moment of discomfort, when a bold move feels wrong, even though it could change your life, you're facing your paradigm head on. Here's where the reset happens. Replace every limiting thought with an intentional, empowering one, not once, but every time it appears. This sounds simple, but it's the repetition that rewires your mind. Think of your brain like a path in a forest. The old belief is a well-worn trail. You've walked it thousands of times. Creating a new path means forcing yourself to walk through the untouched grass over and over until it becomes the trail you naturally follow. Bob Proctor explained this in the context of wealth by urging people to act as if they were already in possession of the prosperity they desire. Not in a superficial, pretending way, but by aligning thoughts, feelings, and actions with the reality you want. When you reset your mind, you are no longer negotiating with your old identity. You are choosing consciously to think and behave as the wealthy version of yourself would. This is where most people fail. They try for a week. They feel good for a moment. Then life hits them with the same bills, the same problems, and they conclude it's not working. But that's the test. Your paradigm will fight to survive, and if you stop in that moment, you've just reinforced it. To truly reset your mind, you must persist beyond the resistance. Every time you override an old pattern, you weaken it. Every time you choose the new belief, you strengthen it. Over time, the old program loses power, and the new one becomes your default and wealth. It's a byproduct. The opportunities that once seemed invisible suddenly appear. You start saying yes where you used to say no. You make moves that once felt impossible. Bob Proctor would put it simply. Your outside world is a reflection of your inside world. Change the inside ruthlessly, intentionally, and the outside will follow. Now ask yourself, what is the first belief you need to erase? What is a thought that has been quietly ruling your life? Don't just think about it. Write it down. Confront it. Because from this point forward, every time it appears, You're going to replace it with the thought of someone who is already wealthy, already in control, already free. That's the reset. And it begins now. Bob Proctor often reminded people that they weren't really fighting against outside circumstances. They were fighting against themselves. Not the self you consciously identify with, but the invisible programming buried deep in your subconscious. He called it your paradigm. And here's the truth. Until you confront and reshape your paradigm, you will keep experiencing the same results, no matter how much you want something different. Think of your paradigm as an invisible force that controls how you react, how much you try, and how much you allow yourself to. It's not just negative thinking. It's a whole operating system made of ideas you accepted as truth long ago. You may not even remember when they were installed, but they're still running, silently but powerfully dictating your actions. That's why when someone says, "I'll change when I have more money," Bob Proctor would shake his head. The money doesn't come first. The change comes first. Your results are always a lagging indicator of your mental state. If your mind is set to scarcity, even large amounts of money will slip through your fingers because your inner program can't sustain them. So how do you break the grip of that paradigm? You begin by stopping your energy. Old beliefs survive because you keep giving them attention, replaying them in your mind, and using them as excuses. When you catch yourself thinking, "I can't afford that," or "I'm not that kind of person," you've just exposed your paradigm in action. That's your moment to intervene. Bob Proctor's advice was to use the power of replacement, not suppression. You can't simply tell yourself, "Don't think that way." The mind doesn't work in a vacuum. You need to replace the old thought with a new one that's aligned with the results you want. If you're trying to break free from a poverty mindset, you might replace "I can't afford that" with "How can I create the resources for this?" That one change moves you from helplessness to possibility. It's uncomfortable at first because the new thought feels like a lie. You'll tell yourself, but it's not true yet. That's exactly the point. Your mind doesn't change because you repeat what's already real. It changes because you impress upon it a new reality until it becomes real. Bob Proctor's famous line, "If you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand," is a direct call to live in that tension, to train your mind to accept a reality that has not yet shown up physically. This is where the reset turns into a daily practice. You can't change decades of conditioning in a single moment of inspiration. Every day, you are either reinforcing your old paradigm or building your new one. There is no neutral. That means every choice, what you say to yourself, how you react to challenges, even the way you speak about money, is either feeding wealth or feeding lack. One of Bob's most powerful exercises for breaking old paradigms was writing a clear, concise statement of the life you intend to live, written in the present tense, as if it already exists. You carry it with you. You read it multiple times a day. You let it sink so deep into your subconscious that it begins to feel like your reality. The more real it feels inside, the faster it begins to show up outside. Some people resist this thinking. That's just wishful thinking, but they miss the mechanism. The mind acts on what it believes true. If you believe you are already wealthy, you make decisions differently. You walk into rooms differently. You see opportunities where others see obstacles. And you stop acting out the habits that kept you broke. Breaking your old paradigm is like pulling up the roots of a tree. You can cut the branches, you can even strip the leaves, but if you don't get to the root, it will grow back. The root is your belief system. That's where the reset must happen. You must question every belief you have about money, about success, about what's possible for you. Ask yourself, who told me this belief? Where did I learn it? Is it based on truth or on someone else's limitation? If I had been raised in a family of billionaires, would I still believe this? Those questions are like an axe to the root. They weaken the hold of the old paradigm and create space for new beliefs to take root. Bob Proctor insisted that wealth was not about luck or intelligence, but alignment. The universe responds to the frequency you're on. If you're operating from fear and lack, you're on a frequency that attracts situations to confirm that fear and lack. When you shift your paradigm to confidence and abundance, you start attracting opportunities that match that vibration. The hardest part? Staying there. You will be tested. Old situations will reappear. People around you will try to pull you back into the old story, sometimes without meaning to, and you will have moments of doubt where your new paradigm feels fragile. That's when you double down on the reset. Repeat your statement. Act as if. Hold the image in your mind with even more intensity. Remember, your paradigm didn't get this strong overnight. It has been reinforced by years of repetition. To break it, you must become more persistent than the programming. And once you do, something extraordinary happens. Wealth stops being something you chase and starts being something you naturally attract. That's the real reset. Not just changing what you think, but changing who you are being. And when that shifts, everything else must follow. Once you've disrupted and weakened the old paradigm, you can't leave your mind empty. Nature abhors a vacuum, and your subconscious will fill that space with whatever is most familiar, usually the very beliefs you just worked to erase. Bob Proctor stressed that the reset is only half the process. The other half is installation. This is where you deliberately program new thoughts, new emotional habits, and new expectations that support wealth instead of sabotaging it. Think of it like upgrading an operating system. You wouldn't just delete the old files and walk away. You install the new system, teach yourself how to navigate it, and run it until it's second nature. Your mind is no different. Bob's approach to installation began with clarity. He would ask, what exactly do you want? Not what would be nice, not what you think is possible, but the exact result you truly desire without shrinking it to fit your current reality. The mind can only lock on to what is specific and definite. Saying I want more money is vague and uninspiring to your subconscious. Saying I earn $500,000 a year through the work I love. Helping people transform their lives is specific, emotionally charged, and actionable. The moment you choose this clear goal, you give your mind something new to revolve around. But clarity alone isn't enough. You must impress it on your subconscious through constant repetition and emotional engagement. Bob would often quote, "The subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. It only knows what you keep telling it." That's why visualizing your goal is so powerful. Visualization isn't daydreaming. It's a deliberate mental exercise in which you not only see the goal, but feel it. Engage every sense. Imagine the environment, the sounds, the conversations you'd have, the weight of the pen in your hand as you sign a large contract, the smell of the new office, the feeling of relief and excitement as you check your bank account. The more real you make it inside, the faster your subconscious accepts it as the new normal. Here's the key. You must connect this visualization to emotion. Bob Proctor would say that emotion is the energy that moves the idea into the subconscious. Without it, you're just repeating empty words. This means you must allow yourself to feel wealthy, powerful, and free before you have the physical evidence. This isn't pretending, it's training your nervous system to operate from abundance instead of lack. Along with visualization, Bob emphasized the importance of acting as if this is where many people hesitate, thinking it means recklessly spending money they don't have. That's not what he taught. Acting as if is about decision. Ask yourself at every crossroads, if I were already living my desired reality, what would I do here? This might mean investing in yourself when you'd normally hold back, speaking up in a meeting when you'd normally stay quiet, or negotiating with confidence instead of desperation. Every time you act from your new paradigm, you send a signal to your subconscious. This is who we are now, and your mind will begin adjusting to make that identity consistent. Another technique Bob recommended was surrounding yourself with evidence of wealth. This doesn't mean you need to live in luxury before you can afford it, but you can start exposing yourself to environments, people, and experiences that reflect your new paradigm. Visit the neighborhoods where you want to live. Test drive the car you want. Attend events where wealthy, successful people gather, not to compare yourself, but to normalize the feeling of being in those spaces. Why? Because the subconscious loves what is familiar. If wealth and abundance feel foreign or intimidating, you'll unconsciously push them away. But if you repeatedly put yourself in environments that match your goal, you reduce resistance and make them feel like home. And then there's one of Bob's most deceptively simple but life-changing practices, the gratitude frequency. Gratitude is not just a nice feeling, it's a state of mind that aligns you with abundance. When you're grateful, you are telling your subconscious that you already live in a state of having, not lacking. Bob would often remind his audience, the more you are grateful for what you have, the more you will have to be grateful for. This is not just philosophy, it's a psychological truth. When your focus is on what's good, your mind searches for more of it. Make gratitude part of your installation process. Every morning, list 10 things you are grateful for, some from your current reality and some from the reality you are creating. For example, I am so happy and grateful now that I earn $500,000 a year doing meaningful work. You are planting the seed of that experience in your subconscious while also acknowledging the good that's already here. Over time, these practices create a new mental home for you. At first, the old paradigm will still try to pull you back. You'll have days where fear takes over or where your results don't yet match your vision. This is where most people quit. But Bob would warn that quitting here is like turning off the oven before the cake is finished baking. The ingredients were there. The heat was applied, but the process wasn't given enough time. Patience is part of the installation. You must be willing to live in the gap between the old and the new without collapsing back into your old identity. This is the period where your results begin to shift. Subtly, a conversation opens a door. An idea sparks a chance encounter, offers an opportunity. These are the early signs that the new paradigm is taking hold. And here's the truth. Once it locks in, it becomes effortless. You no longer have to push yourself to think wealthy thoughts or take confident actions. It's simply who you are. That's when the game changes, because you're no longer chasing wealth from the outside. You're expressing it from the inside. And the world has no choice but to reflect that back to you. The installation is the bridge between the mind reset and the physical wealth. Without it, the reset fades and the old paradigm creeps back in. With it, your transformation becomes irreversible. When you've installed a new wealth paradigm, something shifts. You begin to think, act, and feel differently without forcing it. But Bob Proctor would say this is not the time to slow down. It's the time to accelerate. The mind you've built is now fertile ground. And the faster you plant and nurture wealth-building actions, the faster the external results multiply. Acceleration begins with decision. Bob was relentless about this point. Wealthy people decide quickly and change their minds slowly. The reason's simple. Every delayed decision gives your old paradigm a chance to creep back in. If you've trained your mind to believe you are a wealthy, capable creator, then when an opportunity appears, you act. You don't wait for everything to be perfect. You decide, and then you make it work. One of Bob's most repeated teachings was, don't wait until you have the money. Make the decision first, and the money will come. This isn't recklessness. It's the recognition that when you commit at a deep level, your mind and your environment begin aligning to support that decision. If you wait for it when I can afford it, you're still operating from the scarcity paradigm. Acceleration also means increasing the frequency and quality of the actions you take. In the early stages, you were focused on reprogramming your mind. Now, that new mindset must be expressed through bold, consistent action. You no longer take the small, hesitant steps you used to. You move with intention. You reach out to bigger clients, pitch ideas you used to hold back, invest in ventures you believe in, hire help instead of trying to do it all alone. But here's the subtle part. Acceleration is not the same as frantic activity. Bob Proctor taught that results come from aligned action, not from being busy. A person running in circles at high speed is not accelerating toward wealth. They're exhausting themselves. Acceleration means that each action you take is amplified because it's rooted in a powerful self-image and a clear goal. This is why environment control becomes crucial at this stage. The faster you move, the more sensitive you are to outside influences. Negative voices, scarcity-based advice, or time spent in environments that don't match your vision can slow your momentum. Bob was very direct about this. Protect your mind like you protect your most valuable asset, because it is. That may mean limiting conversations with people who constantly complain about money, or stepping back from media that fuels fear and lack. Another acceleration principle Bob emphasized was multiple streams of income. Once your paradigm supports wealth, you're no longer afraid to expand beyond a single source. You see opportunities in places you previously overlooked. The key is not to scatter yourself thin, but to look for aligned avenues that flow from your core skills, interests, and values. If you're in business, that might mean adding a new product line, creating a subscription model, or licensing your knowledge. If you're employed, it could mean investing in assets that generate cash flow. And then there's leverage, perhaps the most misunderstood wealth accelerator. Bob Proctor would point out that wealthy people don't trade time for money. They create systems, products, or investments that work, whether they're physically present or not. Once your mindset supports the idea that your income doesn't have to be tied to hours worked, you begin looking for ways to scale. This could be as simple as automating part of your business, hiring a team, or putting capital into income-generating assets. Acceleration also thrives on feedback loops. Most people avoid feedback because they fear criticism. But in the wealth game, feedback is fuel. When you try something new, measure the results quickly, adjust, and try again without attaching your self-worth to the outcome. Your new paradigm allows you to see every result, positive or negative, as information that brings you closer to your goal. At this point, gratitude becomes even more important. In the early reset stage, gratitude helps shift you into abundance. Now, it amplifies your momentum when you're grateful for new opportunities, clients, income, and ideas, even the small ones. You keep your frequency high. Bob would often say, you can't be in a negative vibration and positive vibration at the same time. Gratitude locks you in the positive. Another acceleration factor Bob loved to teach was goal stretching. When you've reached a certain milestone, don't settle there. Set a bigger goal that feels just outside your comfort zone. This keeps your mind expanding and prevents you from slipping into complacency. He would tell his audiences, the purpose of a goal is not to get the goal. The purpose of a goal is to grow. And in wealth creation, growth is the best insurance against stagnation. But perhaps the most powerful accelerator is serving at a higher level. Wealth is a byproduct of value creation. When you look for ways to serve more people, solve bigger problems, or deliver deeper transformation, the money naturally follows. This shifts you from how can I make more to how can I give more. The more value you give, the more value you, not as a moral slogan, but as a practical law of cause and effect. Bob's philosophy made it clear. Acceleration is not about greed or speed for its own sake. It's about using the momentum you've built to create the life you want faster without losing alignment. The key is to keep the principles of your new paradigm intact while you expand. Guard your mindset, take decisive action, leverage your resources, and stretch your goals. Once acceleration becomes your new rhythm, you enter what Bob called the creative flow. Ideas, people, and opportunities begin showing up in such a synchronized way that it can feel almost effortless. That's when you know the paradigm shift is complete because you're no longer forcing change. You're living it. The real measure of success in resetting your mind is not a single breakthrough, a sudden influx of money, or one lucky opportunity. It's whether the shift lasts, whether the new paradigm you've created becomes the foundation you stand on every single day. Bob Proctor's work wasn't about quick wins. It was about permanent transformation. He wanted people to live in a state where wealth was natural, growth was inevitable, and limitation was simply not part of their identity anymore. Making the reset permanent means locking in your new paradigm so deeply that it becomes unshakable, even in the face of challenges. Life will still present setbacks, unexpected bills, market changes, or personal trials. The difference is with a permanent paradigm shift. Those events don't derail you, they simply become part of the creative process. You meet them with resourcefulness, not fear. Bob Proctor often said, it's not what happens that determines your results, it's how you respond. A permanent reset means your default response to challenges is from a wealthy mindset. You ask, what can I do with this? How can this serve my growth? Where is the opportunity here? That kind of thinking turns potential losses into wins. And it's why some people get richer. Even during economic downturns, they are operating from a mindset that sees solutions where others see walls. To make the reset stick, you must continue practicing the mental habits that built it in the first place. Visualization, gratitude, and goal setting are not phase one activities. They are lifelong disciplines. The mind, if left unattended, will revert to old patterns over time, not because you failed, but because life constantly offers triggers that could reawaken your old paradigm. Consistency is the insurance policy against that regression. One of the most effective ways to reinforce your paradigm daily is through study. Bob Proctor never stopped studying. Even after decades of teaching, he would spend hours each day reading, listening, and absorbing ideas that kept him expanding. He often repeated, if you're not growing, you're dying. And in the world of wealth creation, growth is not optional. Keep feeding your mind with material that strengthens your beliefs, challenges your limits, and stretches your vision. Environment is another pillar of permanence. If you surround yourself with people and situations that normalize scarcity thinking, your subconscious will slowly adapt to that vibration. But if you keep yourself in proximity to high achievers, ambitious thinkers, and abundant environments, your paradigm stays tuned to expansion. This doesn't mean cutting off everyone who hasn't shifted yet. It means being intentional about whose energy you allow to dominate your space. Bob also emphasized the importance of teaching what you learn. When you share these ideas with others, you are reinforcing them within yourself. Explaining your journey, your mindset shifts, and your wealth principles forces you to organize and clarify your thinking. Plus, you become a source of inspiration and proof for those around you. The act of teaching is a form of self-reinforcement. A permanent reset also requires an ongoing relationship with bigger goals. Once you've reached the goals that once seemed impossible, don't stop there. Bob's philosophy was that a goal is meant to cause you to grow, and growth is endless. As soon as you hit a target, set another one that requires you to think differently, act bolder, and expand further. This is not about being deceptive. It's about honoring your capacity to keep creating. And then there's what Bob called the image factor. Your self-image is the thermostat of your life. It regulates what you allow yourself to experience. Even with a new paradigm, if your self-image is small, your results will shrink to match it. That's why you must continually see yourself as the person who lives the life you desire, and then expand that image as you grow. Look in the mirror and speak to the person you are becoming, not just the person you've been. Making the reset permanent also involves handling money in alignment with wealth consciousness. Bob never taught hoarding or reckless spending. He taught intelligent stewardship. Treat your money as a tool for growth, contribution, and enjoyment. Invest in yourself, in your business, and in opportunities that align with your values. Let money flow, but direct that flow with intention. When you operate with both confidence and wisdom, money grows in your hands. Finally, permanence comes from living in service and purpose. If your only reason for resetting your mind was personal gain, your motivation might fade once you've reached a certain level of comfort. But if your wealth is tied to something bigger, a vision of service, a mission, a desire to elevate others, you will always have a reason to grow. Purpose fuels persistence, and persistence keeps your paradigm alive. Bob Proctor's life was living proof of these principles. He started with nothing, no connections, no money, no advanced education, but he reset his mind, installed a new paradigm, accelerated his results, and lived in continuous expansion until his final days. His teachings live on because they are not dependent on time, trends, or market conditions. They are laws of the mind and the universe. You have that same power. The reset begins with awareness, solidifies with installation, expands with acceleration, and becomes permanent through discipline, environment, study, service, and goal stretching. Wealth is not just about having more, it's about becoming more. So the real question is, are you willing to make this your new way of life, not just a temporary project? Because if you are, there is no limit to what you can create from here. And remember Bob's words, if you see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. Start seeing it now and never stop